Well, good morning, YouTube. Thought I'd make this little video for Claire. She makes wonderful videos every week, and if you haven't seen her videos, links in the description, please do so. So here in Northern California, it's a little rainy today. But gives me a little time to make a video. In your last video, in passing, you mentioned the ghost forests of Oregon. Quite interesting. And I just replied in the comments that we have pygmy forests in our area. And most people had not heard of a pygmy forest. And I was one of them when I first moved into this area. A pygmy forest? What are you talking about? A pygmy forest? Little pygmies running around? No, there's no such thing. So I thought I'd make a little video for you, show you what a pygmy forest actually is, take you there. And the video isn't so great. It's pretty grainy, not so hot. So I took a few stills. Hopefully that'll give you an idea of what a pygmy forest is. And I hope you enjoy it. So let's tell you where we're starting from. Mendocino is about a 3.5 hour drive north of San Francisco. There you'll find the Van Dam State Park. And from there we're going to head about 3.5 miles inland, and that is where we will find the pygmy forest. A little later in the video we will head up that logging road and scoot over to the Fern Canyon Trail. For now we're going to stick around and just look at the pygmy forest for a bit here. What's interesting about the pygmy forest is the geology. It's occurred in such a way to starve certain areas of nutrition. No erosion, very little erosion, and very little nutrition. What little nutrition it receives is basically what comes out of the sky in the form of rain, animals that may wander into the territory and die. Most of the nutrition gets run off and nothing goes in. So over an extreme period of time, the soil just turns acidic and very little can grow, and everything becomes stunted. It becomes a pygmy forest. Well, this chart shows how the geologic uplift has created these terraces, and each terrace creates a pygmy forest. By creating the terrace, it reduces the area's ability to absorb nutrition. So over extreme periods of time, the soil simply turns acidic. And the only thing that can grow there is acidic-friendly plants. And anything else that tries to grow there will be stunted. The higher the terrace, the older the soil. And the stuff really struggles here. This forest may look thick, but it isn't very tall. And there isn't a lot of lushness here. Everything is just bare bones, taking what it can. The California huckleberry, this film was taken in September, and you'll see there's some pretty good berries here. The Native Americans did pretty well on these. They are in the pygmy forest, and they do grow here, but that's about it. You'll see there isn't a whole lot of real healthy life here. Folks that know me know that I love pine trees. And even if they're stunted in a pygmy forest, they can be beautiful. And there's a few of them here that are just unusual trees, that's for sure. So I've got a few photos here and there, and hopefully you can get a taste of what I'm talking about here. Now this tree has to be in this area 80, 90, 100 years old. That's a full mature tree, full cones, but look at that. It's barely surviving. Now this photograph's important. Here we're standing in the middle of the pygmy forest, and you can see the boundary layers as we progress out. Closest into the camera, it's obviously sparse, a little more vegetation further out, and the huge pine trees out in the edge. We're going to head there later. But for right now, we're going to stay on the trail and give you an idea of what's going on. So why is the soil so old? I mean, we're talking really old soil. How could it survive so long on the surface, just sitting there? It just seems unheard of. But here it is. So here's a couple views of the soil. You can see it's kind of hard. Man, nobody really wants to live there. The only thing that can live there is acidic happy plants, which aren't many. So lichen grows there. There's some ivy, a mushroom or two. This is what the floor looks like in the Pygmy Forest. But let's keep moving. So we are kind of nearing the end, and you can see some thicker trees beginning to appear near the borderline. Now they're still pretty thin, still pretty scrawny. Soil isn't all that great here. The forest is still pretty acidic in this zone. This is one of the older zones. And you can see it's still very, very difficult for things to grow. As we get to this part of the trail, it kind of splits off. If we head to the left, we stay on the trail. If we head down this road, we head off into the forest. So right now we're going to stay on the little trail here and show you one more thing before we call it quits. Two more things, actually. So I talked about my little pines I like. Here's a little cypress. This thing isn't taller than you or me. And still a full mature tree, easily decades old. This was shot in September, this motion, and then the still photo coming up was shot just recently here, just a few days ago, middle of January. Well, here the rhododendron is also dwarfed and stunted. It suffers the same fate as every other plant. The soil just doesn't provide enough nutrients to grow. Being no different than a human trying to live on rice and beans. Plants can't live in highly acidic soil without proper nutrition. They just won't grow. They become dwarfed. So there you have it. You've just been through a pygmy forest. And well, doesn't that feel good? Now you've been through a pygmy forest. But just to show you something else, let's go down the other road here and let's head into the forest for just a quick bit. Let's take this 1.2 mile trail and we will end up where it says, "You are here." So if we leave the Pygmy Forest, we follow this guy and we hang a right, and you can see the forest dead ahead. It isn't all that far. You can see how the vegetation changes fairly rapidly. The closer we get to the forest, the better the nutrition is in the soil, and more forest begins. Well, now we're getting into the heavier forested areas. This is a fairly popular spot right here, but as you can see here, we get down to a place where there's some running water. This is one of those valleys, and if you look a little further down this photo, you can see where the deep forest begins. Now we've crossed that line where the nutrition starts and the real forest begins. This is 10-15 minute walk away from the Pygmy Forest. You can see the floor is full of nutrition. All kinds of things are growing here, mushrooms of all kinds. Life like crazy. Well, we've walked up the 1.2 mile trail here, and we're going to head back the 2.3 mile trail just to get a little idea what the deep forest is like. I won't bore you with my photos from that, but here are just a couple quick shots. So it's just amazing that you can go from a forest this lush 15 minutes away, within a quarter mile, you can turn into a pygmy forest. I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and especially Claire for the Coffee with Claire weekly show.